Hare Krishna. Thank you everyone for joining this session. So we'll do Kirtan now for about 15 minutes, 15-20 minutes, and then we'll start the session.
Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami
Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namini
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Ashatari Shatarini
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatari Shatari Chaitanya
Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda.
Hare Krishna
Krishna,
Hare Hare,
Hare Hare,
Hare Rama,
Hare Rama,
Hare Rama,
Hare Rama,
Rama Rama,
Rama Rama,
Hare Hare,
Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna,
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय, प्रभुपाद की जय, निताई गौर प्रेमानंदी। हरि हरि बोल,
Hari Bol.
हरि
Thank
हरि
you so
बोल।
very much, Vrinda and Prabhuji. It was really wonderful kirtan.
Thank you, bro. I'll pause for a second. I'll go upstairs.
Yeah, Prabhuji. Take your time.
Hare Krishna. Thank you again for joining our weekly satsang. So, Prabhuji, we can quickly do a recap before everyone joins.
Yeah, Prabhuji. So, last week we had studied about seventh verse, seventh verse, right? 5, 6, 7.
Yes.
So seventh verse was important. We discussed more on that, and that was related to one who walks in devotion. So one who walks in devotion, the person always try to serve other. Person always try to serve other, and that is the symptom of a devotee. And so para dukhe dukhi. So and second thing, the person act in a way pleasing to the Lord. So he always act in such a way that Lord gets pleased by his act. So iya yatma suprasidati. So Sai punsam paro dharma yato bhakti adokchuje ahetu kiya pratihata ye atma suprasidati. So person act in a way which pleases to the Lord. And third, that person is dear to everyone and everyone is dear to him. So Krishna also said in different places in the Bhagavad Gita, no, such devotees are very dear to me. So those who works always to praise me, and surrender me and work as per my directions. So such persons are dear to everyone and everyone is dear to him. So this verse number 7 is really, really wonderful. And Ajit Krishna Prabhu pointed these 3 points. That is the very, very, good points. If we follow in our life, so life will be successful, Prabhupada said. So if we try to please the Lord, so our life will be successful. So that's what I have the note, Prabhuji, for 7th verse. More we meditated on this. And then further we were talking about kind of discussion, part of discussion like about the soul, how soul or subtle body, how carry the karma, from one body to another body. So those discussions were there. So yeah, that's what I remember. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prabhu. That's a wonderful summarization. Also, in 7th verse, in Srila Prabhupada's purport, if you see that the Vaishnava sannyasis who are engaged in devotional service, so that point I like very much. The Vaishnava sannyasis who are engaged in devotional service are happy in discharge of their transcendental duties, and they have the guarantee of ultimate entrance into the kingdom of God. So that point I like very much, Prabhu, because normally in our even in our devotee community, if you see many of the devotees, so they always keep cribbing or lamenting about them not being happy in their day-to-day activities, whatever they do. They are called devotees, but they always keep lamenting that, okay, somehow whatever I'm doing, it's not making me happy. It's not making me happy. So it is not that the process is wrong, but the way we follow, actually it is wrong. Otherwise, devotee by default, if he follows all the processes laid out by the scriptures and acharyas, devotees by default, they have to be happy. They will be happy, if we follow process properly. So outsiders, it's just ruled out. They cannot be happy, because Srila Prabhupada says, one who does not know God does not know good. Srila Prabhupada clearly says in one of his lectures. So outside people, those who don't know Krishna, they cannot, even though they are on the outlook, they might be looking good, but actually their activities is not good. It's not pleasing to the Lord or Guru. So they cannot be happy. So internally also, devotees who say that, oh, I'm not happy, then that means they're not following the process. Either they're not chanting properly, they're not listening to lectures, they're not trying to implement what they have learned. So
Yeah.
devotees should never say this. Srila Prabhupada said, devotees never lament. Devotees never are unhappy at any point of time. Okay.
Right.
So that's what it is said. Anyways, thank you very much, Prabhu.
Yeah. Thank you.
Ajit Krishna Prabhu, Dharnavat Pranam, all Gaurish Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, all Guru Srila Prabhupada, Guru Maharaj ki jai.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Pranam, Bhai Prabhupada, Jai.
Nice to see you, Prabhu.
Good to be here.
Yeah.
Oh, Krishna's mercy. Okay, Prabhuji. So I guess you all were doing the recap, so that's done. So we can move ahead then.
Yes, Prabhu, please.
Okay. So should we start with the reading?
Yes, Prabhu.
All right.
So we'll start with 7 or we'll start with 8. We did 5, 6, 7.
No, we'd gone past that. We had that.
We passed. We read 8 and 9 because it combined. But did we discuss 8, 9, Prabhu? Or?
Little bit, yeah.
Okay.
But we can go through 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 because that's 8, 9, 10, 11. And let me just see about 12. Yeah, 8 to 12 we can.
Okay, Prabhu.
Because
Brinda?
they are basically the same theme, how to perform Nishkam Karma. So it's the same thread.
Brinda Mataji, can you recite 8, 9? They are together.
Can you please share the screen?
Yes. Can you see?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Naiva kinchit karomiti
Neva kinchit karomiti.
yukto manyate tatvavid
Yukto manyate tattvavid.
pashayan shunva sprushan jigran
Pashyan shrinvan sprishan jigran
ashnan gachan swapan swasan
ashnan gachan swapan swapan
pralapan vishjan grahnan
pralapan grahyan
unmishan nimishanapi
unmishan nimishan api
indriyanindriyarteshu
indriyani indriyateshu
vartanta iti dharayan.
vartanta iti dharayan.
A person in the divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, or opening or closing his eyes, he always knows that the only material senses are engaged with the objects and that he is aloof from them. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Brinda Devi. Tarun Krishna, you want to go? Text number 10.
Brahma Adi Karma Yan
Brahmani Yadhaya Karmani
Sangama Takya Vitti Karya Yaha
Sangam Tektva Karoti Yaha
Padama Par
No, Lipyate. Third line.
Lipyate Nasa Pa Ina
Lipyate na sa papena
Padma Partam Ram Ivi Bahimas.
Padma Padma
Padma
Ram Basa.
Ramasa.
One who performs his duty with attachment, surrendering the result into the Supreme Lord, is
Unaffected.
unaffected in sinful action as the
Lotus
leaf, lotus leaf is untouched by water.
Nice.
Thank you, Tarun Prabhu.
Very nice.
Yes. Next, which other kid is there? Suhrit Prabhu.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dhanat Pranamal Vishishla Prabhu. Suhrit Prabhu is there or no?
I think no, Prabhuji, he's not here, Prabhuji.
You can recite Prabhu. Text 11.
Yeah. Kayena manasa buddhaya
Kayena manasa
Buddhaya.
kevalet indriyerapi
Kevalar Indriyarapi.
yogina karma kurvanti
Yogina
Yogena Karma
Kuruvanti
Kuryanti.
sangam tyaktyaatma suddhaye.
Sangha
Sangam
Sangam
Tyatvatma
Tatvam
Shuddhaye.
Buddhaya.
Translation.
Sudaya, Sudaya.
The yogis abounding attachment act with body, mind, intelligence, and even with the senses only for the purpose of purification. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Narasimha Prabhu, you want to go?
Hare Krishna, yes, Prabhuji. Yukta karma phalam tyaktva
Yukta karma
Karma
phalam
Phalam
tyaktva
Tyakva.
shantim apnoti naishtikim
Mapnoti
Apnoti
Naistikhi.
Nastiki.
naishtikim
ayukta kama karena
Ayukta
Ayukta
Karma
Karma.
phale sakto nibadhyate.
Phale
Phale
Pale
Sakto
Sakto
Nibhadyate.
Nibhajyate.
Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
The steadily devoted soul attains unadulterated peace because he offers the result of all activities to me. Whereas a person who is not in union with the divine, who is greedy for the fruits of his labor, becomes entangled. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Anybody else? All right. So then I think we can continue. Oh,
Can I do one?
Of course, certainly.
Yes.
One half. I don't know if I'd be able to make it through both of them, but I'm going to try.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jai Shri Prabhupada. I'm waiting for the screen to come up.
Can you see the screen?
No, not yet. It's saying it's going around in a circle. I started screen sharing.
Yeah, maybe you're watching using your phone, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why your internet might be slow. Can others see?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a static, we can see.
Yes. So Mata, your phone internet is connection is
Yeah, it's not doing it. Okay, no problem.
you can't see still?
No, I can't see anything now. It's just a blank screen.
Okay.
No, no problem.
If I send you the link, can you open on your phone?
Yes.
I sent you a link in the WhatsApp, so you open that link directly instead of screen share.
right, I'm getting it now. Just 1 second. And
8, 9.
I see it. Yep. Okay, so I'm waiting for it to. Okay. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Is Arjuna Uvacha?
No, text 8 and 9.
Okay, let me see. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, I do have it. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Naiva kinchat karomiti.
Naiva
Yuta manye tatvavit.
Yukto manyeta
I'm sorry. Pasyan Shrinvan Sprisan Jigram
asya
Asnan Gachan Svapan Swasvan Pralpan Vishran Pralpan Vishrajan Granan
Pralapan
Unmisan Nisanapi
Unmishan
Indriyani. I'm sorry. Hold on. Give me a second for this one. Indriyateshu Vartanta iti darayan. Thank you for your support, Hare Krishna.
Translation.
You want me to read it?
Yes, please.
Let me turn. Okay. Translation reads, Jai Shri Prabhupada. A person in the divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, or opening or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects, and that he is aloof from them.
Thank you, Mataji. That's a good recitation.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. All right, so let's move ahead. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Gyananjana-shalakaya Chakshur-unmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam yena bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamanam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatrubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai Shri Prabhupada. So 8, 9, verses 8, 9, 10, and 11, and perhaps 12. Again, just for a quick, just to set the stage. So the chapter, of course, is on Karma Yoga, or action in Krishna consciousness. And in these verses from 7 through 12, actually, Krishna is basically describing how a person acts in Nishkam Karma and how to perform Nishkam Karma, basically. And so I'll just read the translation for verses 8 and 9 really quickly. Or maybe I should do the Sanskrit. Naiva kinchit karomiti yukto nanyeta tattvit Vashyan shranman sprishan jigran ashnan gachan swapan shwasan pradapan visarjan granan unmisham nimishan api indriyani indriyarteshu vartanta iti dharayan. So the idea here is that up until now, like in verses 1 through 6 and 7, and also in the previous chapters, Krishna had basically described knowledge, transcendental knowledge, knowledge that we are not the body. We are not the bodies, and so what are we? We are spirit soul. Yeah, Ram Prabhu, you're on mute, but I know that's what you said. Now, basically, chapter 5, it's a fairly short chapter. It's only 39 verses. And that's because it's a summarization of the previous 2 and parts of chapter 2 as well. So chapter 4, 3, and parts of 2 are basically summarized here in chapter 5. But there is some new information also that Krishna gives here in this chapter, which we will get to actually next time, and that is about the 3 doers. However, at this point, Krishna is basically explaining to Arjuna that once a person gets knowledge that he is not this body and he is the spirit soul, then with that knowledge, how does the person act? Once a person has this knowledge, does his behavior change? And so here Krishna is giving practical guidance in terms of how the person acts in that knowledge. So he says that a person in the divine consciousness. So let me actually, you can keep your phone on, unmuted so that we can go back and forth. So when he says a person in the divine consciousness, what does he mean?
He is in Krishna consciousness.
Yes, in Krishna consciousness. And what's another way of describing that in more simple terms?
He is not attached to fruits of the work.
Sure. Okay. Not attached to fruits of work. Yes.
So whatever he does, whatever he acts, whatever he says, it is in conjunction with the scriptures.
Right. Absolutely. And anything else?
He is in mode of goodness.
Yes, certainly. More goodness.
He is working as per Krishna desire.
Sure. Other thoughts?
He is always remembering the Lord.
Yes, always remembering the Lord. So these are all symptoms of divine consciousness. Other thoughts? Yes, please go ahead. Okay. So all of these are to the point answers. And so one way of summarizing, yes, please go ahead, Mithra Mathan. You see your hand raised.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. So from a vulnerable place, I'm going to say that just the understanding, like to be at that point where nothing is motivated by self, that is actually service. That's actually serving Krishna. It's such a difficult, like, and I can only speak for myself, but I honestly, I can't imagine it. There's always something, I think about my children, and serving my children is, I get something out of that. And I think Krishna designed it that way. So, mothers, like, from even before they're born, there's this commitment and love and care that's necessary to help them get here to the material platform, because they belong to Krishna. But just that aspect of not having any at all, like, we serve Krishna, we get to see him, whether we're on the altar, bathing him. It's just like, cooking for him, there's some self-motivation in that. And so I was just wondering, how do we get there, Prabhu?
How do we get to the point of being not motivated by any of these considerations that you just listed, right? So to get to that point, one of the summary kind of sentence that encapsulates everything that you all said is that the person in divine consciousness is basically a person who has complete understanding of the fact that he is not this body, he is the soul. Now, what does that mean in practical terms?
Yeah, I want to give one try to now he's aware of that his constitutional position, like his position is Jivera Sarupa and Nitya Krishna Das. So
right.
He is serving as a Dasana Das. Yeah.
Right. Thanks for that, Prabhu. So when a person is in this divine consciousness, and that Jivira Sarupa and Tera Krishna Das, always considering himself a servant of Krishna, and when the person thinks like this, that, okay, I am not this body, I am spirit soul, how that can keep our motivation away from some of the considerations that Mata you listed, like, we have our children, we have responsible for them, we do things that are good for them, and so on and so forth. And we don't necessarily have to, that's not a bad thing. That is fine, that is perfectly legitimate. Because after all, as parents, our prime duty as parents is to raise our children to be Krishna conscious, is to provide for them a Krishna conscious atmosphere. So to the extent that you are attached to your children, that's legitimate. That's a legitimate attachment. You should not feel guilty that I'm attached to my children, or I'm motivated to do things that are good for my children. That's your duty. And so Krishna here is saying that, yes, you should be cognizant of all these responsibilities, like you listed children, for example, that you have. However, at the back of your mind, just keep reminding yourself, I'm not this body, I'm spirit soul. So what that means in practical terms is that we realize, we accept that everything that I have, including my body, everything that we have in our possession, our house, whatever money we have, whatever possessions we have, children that we have, to the extent the body that we have, everything is Krishna's property. None of it belongs to me. And therefore, when it is Krishna's property, it should be used in his service. It should be used to please him. So from a mother's perspective, for example, to use your example, Mataji, from a mother's perspective, if it is important for you to be home at a certain time so that you can feed your children at the right time, so the children don't go hungry, and that they're put to bed at the right time, this might sound like a very mundane consideration. However, it's not, because you're doing it with the realization that these children are put under my care by Krishna. If I have to provide a certain structure in the house for them, that they eat at a certain time, they go to bed at a certain time, that structure is there for a bigger purpose. And the bigger purpose is so that these kids can be raised in Krishna consciousness. They can be raised to be aware of God. So when they eat the prasad, when you're giving them the dinner, I'm sure you're telling them to say the prayer, Maha Prasade Govinde, etc., etc. So while all these activities are being performed, you and the children and the entire family, everybody is conscious of the fact that everything that we have, everything that we're doing is meant, or first of all, it's given to us by Krishna. So we are thanking him for it. And because it's given by Krishna, because it belongs to Krishna, it's our responsibility, very important responsibility, that it should be used in a way that's pleasing to Krishna. So we use it in Krishna's service. And then the activity that we perform does not become binding. Then that activity is fine. So to go back to the original question of how can our mundane everyday activities also be a source of spiritual advancement for us, the answer to that is that if those activities are performed with the desire to please Krishna, with the understanding that everything is given to me by Krishna, then it's fine. So here again, I just want to kind of bring our focus back to one of the concepts that we had discussed, and that was Gyan and Vigyan, and then Karma. So if you remember, first there's Gyan. On one hand, there's Gyan. And actually, I should have drawn this thing out because we are referring to this quite frequently. On one hand, there's Gyan. On the other hand, there's Vigyan. How do you get from Gyan to Vigyan? Through karma. So the link between these two, if you look, or if you think of this, or my face is between my two hands. So this is Gyan, this is karma, and this is Vigyan. So basically, what that means is that you may have Gyan, you may have this knowledge that I'm not this body. But how do you realize that? How do you realize that you're not this body? When you realize it, then you'll be in the, at the stage of Vigyan, because you've experienced it. And that experience is gained through karma, through action. So the action that Krishna tells us to perform to understand that we are not this body is, one of them is the chanting of the Maha mantra. So the bridge between Gyan and Vigyan is karma. So karma is very important, but it's got to be the right type of karma. If it's the wrong karma, then there's no question of that karma taking you from Gyan to Vigyan. It will take you from Gyan to maybe to hell. So the idea is to perform the right karma. And that right karma, which translates Gyan into Vigyan, has to be performed, as Krishna says in chapter 4, Tadvidhi Pranipatena Pariprashnena Seva. Approach a spiritual master, follow his instructions, because they have seen the truth. These are self-realized souls. They can impart this knowledge to you because they themselves have seen it. This is where the role of the guru comes in. We cannot whimsically perform karma. The karma performed under the instruction, under the guidance of a bona fide guru, translates the Gyan into Vigyan. So when we perform these our devotional activities like hearing and chanting, worshipping our deities, bathing our deities, offering food to them, eating prasad, all of these activities help us understand, help us feel from time to time that I'm actually a spirit soul and I'm not this body. And so that's what's being mentioned in this verse, or in these two verses, 8 and 9. Krishna is explaining that a person who understands that he is not this body, but is a spirit soul, that's the first part of the first sentence. We didn't go beyond that, actually. A person in the divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, etc. So he's listed all, so-called mundane regular activities, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all, that the soul is actually doing nothing at all. And because while speaking, etc., he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects and that he's aloof from them. So in other words, the person realizes, if my eyes are seeing something, my eyes are part of my material body. But me as the spirit soul is aloof from this material body. So what's the point of all of this? The point of all of this is, first, Krishna lays the groundwork that a person who understands or who wants to understand and realize that I'm this spirit, soul, and not this body, always keeps reminding himself or herself while performing everyday mundane activities of this fact. Then, when a person acts like this, the question becomes, does a person then incur sinful reactions when a person acts in this manner? And so the next verse, verse 10, if somebody will read the translation, please. Translation for verse 10.
Translation by Divine Grace Savacharana Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. One who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results unto the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by sinful action, as the lotus leaf is untouched by water.
There you go. So when a person acts in such consciousness, then he or she is not affected by sinful reactions. And that clarification is provided here, because this was Arjun's doubt. He didn't want to perform an action that would bind him in sinful reactions. So here Krishna is saying, when you act in that consciousness that you're not this body or spirit, soul, then there will be no sinful reaction. But then if there is no sinful reaction, and then this very nice analogy is used about, like a lotus flower is untouched by water. That's just because the lotus leaf has a, waxy sort of an oily sort of a surface. So when water drops on it, it coagulates and just falls off, and it doesn't stick to the leaf. So it doesn't wet the leaf really, it just slides away. So in this way, even though a person performs actions, no sinful reaction will stick to the person. It'll just slide away like the water slides away from the top of the leaf, of a lotus leaf. So if a person is detached from the results of the activity, and at the same time the person knows that he is spirit, soul, then what is the need for the person to even act? What is the need then for the person to even act? And so that is answered in the next verse, which is text 11. So if somebody would like to read text 11, please. The translation of text 11.
Anybody else going to do?
Yeah, Jagnesh Prabhu, go ahead.
The yogis abandoning attachment act with body, mind, intelligence, and even with the senses, only for the purpose of purification.
Only for the purpose of purification. Thank you, Prabhu. So this is the key. Krishna is saying you don't have to stop acting. Okay, Mataji's question is, please elaborate. Isn't acting in a devotional way with the desire to be free from the Mataji, if you don't mind, can you speak out the question, because the blurb just that disappeared before I could catch it. Hey, Mataji, whenever you have a chance, if you can speak out the question, that'll be helpful, because you couldn't catch it.
Oh, yes. Sorry about that. Okay, I'm going to read it now. Isn't acting in a devotional way with the desire to be free from the sins they've committed, or the sins one has committed, disqualifying in performing service without attachment?
No, it's not, because the desire to be free from previous sinful reactions is a legitimate reason to engage in devotional service. Because if you don't engage in devotional service, then one action will always be there. We will be acting one way or another. And if we are not acting in devotional service, then we'll be performing likely vikarma, or actions that incur sinful reactions. So a knowledgeable person, Gyan, part of having Gyan is that we understand what kind of action is binding, what kind of action is non-binding, and what kind of action actually frees us from sinful reaction. And so the third type of action is action in devotional service. So that's a legitimate reason to engage in devotional service. Because one of the points that Krishna makes in this chapter, and he's building it up, is that first of all, we gain knowledge. And when we are situated in knowledge, then we must act. And then when we act in knowledge, that leads to spiritual advancement. So in other words, the person in knowledge is a Gyani or Gyan Yogi. The person who's acting could be acting as a Karma Yogi. But both of these, when they are combined, they lead a person up to the path of bhakti. And that is the eventual goal. So Krishna wants everybody to come to the platform of bhakti. But that bhakti platform can be reached through the combination of Gyan and Karma, Gyan Yoga and Karma Yoga. Now, those are gradual paths, but eventually they lead to bhakti. And therefore, Prabhupada has actually cut to the chase. And in most of his purports, he keeps emphasizing, just come straight to bhakti, come straight to bhakti, come straight to bhakti, because that's really where Krishna is taking us. Now, he's giving us all of these other paths as well, just so that we have an understanding of all the other paths, which will equip us with the knowledge to be able to determine the supremacy of bhakti and why bhakti is supreme. It's very important to understand the merits and limitations of different paths before you can truly appreciate the importance of bhakti. So therefore, in answer to your question, it's not or it's completely okay to perform bhakti with the desire to be free from previous sinful acts. Because why do you want to be free from sinful acts?
Well, so so just in understanding, so sometimes people want to be free from sinful acts that have been committed in the past, so that they don't suffer. So that's why I'm saying, is there a difference between them not wanting to suffer for what they've done and wanting to be free from sinful acts in order to continue to serve more or deeper Radha and Krishna? Is there a difference in that?
Yeah, the latter is clearly the higher position, that a person wants to be free from, let's say, bodily suffering, so that the body is healthy enough to allow us to engage even more intensely in serving Radha and Krishna. But if a person's preliminary understanding is simply this much, that I don't want to suffer for my past sins, and therefore they engage in devotional service, guess what? Devotional service is so beautiful that it will gradually elevate the person and cleanse or in fact deepen their motivation from simply wanting to not suffer to wanting to not suffer so that they can engage themselves even more intensely. Because if a person wants to be healthy, there are two things they can do. Either use their good health to enjoy this material world, or use their good health to serve Krishna so that they don't have to come back into this material world.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. So how it all fits together like a puzzle. I just wanted to see if you would just quickly go over the aspects of someone may be new and they want to serve so that they can alleviate themselves from the suffering that's going to come from the sins. But in serving to alleviate themselves from suffering, if they're not understanding the relationship between our connection to each other while serving, if they're making offenses or committing more sins because they have a desire to be free from their sins that they've committed before, and they're doing it in devotional service, the guru helps them understand this, right? Like, that's the guru's job to say, hey, you can't step over this devotee to serve Krishna.
Correct.
Because you're trying to alleviate your sins. But if that's done, then that connection with guru is so beautiful and such an intrinsic part of the education of devotion that it's priceless, right? It should be had, right?
Right. I mean, so are you saying, Mataji, that the guru then prevents the person from trying to jump over another devotee in order for them to perform their own devotional service?
Well, I'll say my Guru Maharaj Bhakti Tirtha Swami was very, very clear about how we treat others, because Krishna is there, and the world may not exemplify it. And no, we're not our bodies, but there are a lot of times people are treated as though they're their bodies, and your body means less to me. Your body is less than, in so many ways, so many countries. But he was very, very clear that Krishna resides within each living entity. And if we're not understanding that, that's the very basics of relating and trying to understand how to serve Krishna.
Yes. And basically, I would just look at it this way, or I would explain it this way, or elaborate on it this way, that a neophyte devotee like myself, we come into devotional service for the sake of trying to alleviate our past sins, for example, so that we don't have to suffer now. But while performing devotional service, if we are conducting ourselves in a way which is not respectful of other devotees, for example, that also is not, obviously that's not a high standard. And the person gradually, under the instruction of the guru, comes, or the guru helps the devotee understand, and Krishna as Paramatma from within the heart helps the devotee understand, and other devotees also that the devotee might interact with can help this devotee understand that your basic purpose of coming to devotional service is to please Krishna. And of course, by the way, it helps alleviate your past sinful reactions. But if you don't respect other devotees, then you're not pleasing Krishna. So it's like you're pouring water over the fire, fire of devotional service. So what you're trying to accomplish, on one hand, by trying to engage in devotional service, you're negating, on the other hand, by not conducting yourselves properly with other devotees. That's why the first offense that we are asked to stay away from is blaspheming devotees. And part of blaspheming devotees is not conducting ourselves properly with devotees as well. So that's a higher understanding, and people will gradually come to that stage. But of course, within devotee communities, you find these things happening all the time. Devotees offend each other, they don't conduct themselves. I mean, we all make mistakes, but it's a gradual process, and people can get elevated and rectified. I hope that helps with your question, Martin.
Yes, very much, Prabhu. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
And I wanted to say how wonderfully supportive this Sangha, this platform is for just, putting out realizations and asking for deeper levels of understandings of things that I may miscue or people have asked me questions about. It really is very, very helpful. Thank you.
It's helpful for all of us to be able to gain from each other's realizations and learn from each other, So, Ramchand Prabhu, you have your hand up.
Yeah, Prabhuji, I was thinking, this doesn't for a devotee work in devotion, desiring for free from sinful reactions, that is byproduct for his work for devotion. So it's byproduct, means
Right.
automatically those who chant Krishna names and holy names are so potent that the sinful reaction will automatically go down. Right. And then he'll be the higher platform and
yeah. But the thing is, Prabhu, that even though well, you're 100% right that that's a byproduct, but the level of wanting to do devotional service to please Krishna is definitely a high level. And we are all selfish people, at least I am. And if we come into devotional service with the selfish motivation that, oh, this will free me from past sinful reactions so I don't have to suffer, that's a good starting point. At least you come to devotional service. Like Krishna says, there are 4 types of people who come to devotional service, right? The distressed, the inquisitive, etc. So you start from that point, and gradually elevation takes place. The more sincere we are, the faster we get elevated.
Yeah.
And eventually, when a person comes to the platform of wanting to do everything only to please Krishna, I mean, that's a very, very, very high level. But gradually, each one of us can make advancement towards that point.
Right.
The more we keep reminding ourselves each and every day that, okay, I should do this because it's pleasing to Krishna. I should not do that because it's not pleasing to Krishna, so on and so forth. Then, gradually we'll elevate ourselves. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual process because our contamination is so deep rooted.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why then in verse 11,
Yeah.
The verse is saying that then why should we perform these activities? Because it leads to purification. When we act in Nishkam Karma, that's exactly what we're saying. Attached work leads to entanglement. But if you work without attachment to the results, that gradually purifies us. And sometimes we'll be able to do it, at other times we won't be able to do it, but then you keep trying and keep trying and keep trying, and eventually we keep improving and we keep getting closer and closer to the stage of where we can perform actions only for the sake of pleasing Krishna. So purification is a gradual process. And that's why here in text 11 is recommended that the yogis, abandoning attachment, act with body, mind, and intelligence, and even with the senses only for the purpose of purification. So the message Krishna is giving Arjuna is that, Arjuna, just act with your body, with your mind, with your senses, engaged in this battle for me. You might have all kinds of notions about whether it's good or bad, but just listen to me and do as I say and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu.
You're welcome, Prabhu. So I think that kind of brings us to the end of the discussion on 11. I think next time we'll start with 12 and move forward from there, which is the 3 kinds of doers. Up until here, we've kind of covered how a person acts when he or she is aware that he's not this body, but is the spirit soul. And so the point being made is that actions should continue, but they should be performed in accordance with scriptures for the purpose of purification. All right. So any other questions, comments, doubts? Yes, Narasimhan Prabhu, you got your hand up.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji, for the class, and it was really wonderful discussion. Just reminded me of one story, Prabhuji, when you were mentioning how even though one may be remembering the Lord to be free from sinful reaction, even that is so wonderful. And then you mentioned that, but those who are worshiping without any motive, that's definitely, the topmost bhakti. So it just reminded me about one pastime. I was hearing about how the demigods, even though they are so exalted compared to human beings, but sometimes when there are these demons and there are pastimes happening, like the one I was hearing was about Varadev and Hiranyaksha. They were fighting, and the demigods, as always, they're gone to Brahmaji and then prayed. So when the fight would take place, then Varadev would sometimes fall down, as a pastime. Then they would become a little worried, like what will happen, because even their bhakti is mixed with karma mishrit bhakti. So it is indeed very special on how pure devotees absolutely have no motivation. Hare Krishna.
Krishna, thank you so much. Yeah, that's a very, very important point, actually, that while in this material world, even in the heavenly planets, even if you're a demigod, I mean, there are certain motivations, and pure bhakti is a platform that is even higher. In fact, just the other day, I was listening to a class where this point was made, that in that whole Sagar Manthan pastime.
Yeah.
The point that stuck out was that even the demigods, they actually displayed in that pastime complete obedience to the Lord, and they refrained from trying to control anything by themselves, because they realized that now here's a situation where only the Lord can actually help, and so they actually demonstrated complete obedience.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu, for the wonderful episode and sharing it with us. Any other thoughts or comments?
Very nice discussion, Prabhu. Interesting point. Thank you.
Okay, Prabhu, I think we'll stop here. Sure.
Yes, Prabhu. So, if we are all done, no one has any question. Okay.
This topic is very, very depth. So, I mean, work in devotion and about the devotee. So, I think we need the discussion on that. More it is discussed in the Bhagavatam 3rd canto. There, like how devotee, what are the qualities of the devotee and those are things. So, we should know that in detail. I mean, not only the types of devotee, but the qualities of the devotee, like Titiksha Karunika, Surda Sarvdehina Majat Satva Santa Sadhava
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 Sadhubhushana.
Chanti Ravyartha Kalata, and that Bhakti Rasamrita Singha also. Chanti Ravyartha Kalatam Viraktir Mana Sunyata Asavadda Samkantha Namagane Sadadasi. So those are, yeah. So we have very good association, and in that if we can meditate and discuss the own things, so it's really wonderful. Yeah. So nice project. So it was really nice. Yeah.
Jai Ganesh Prabhu has something to say.
Prabhu, one quick question about Nishkama Karma. The charity given to the general public without any intention or without the understanding of the Supreme Lord is also considered Nishkama Karma, or only if it is connected with the Supreme Lord it is called Nishkama Karma?
Ajit Krishna Prabhu,
Did we lose him?
yeah, I
Yeah,
think so.
he's not here.
Yeah, he's online, but Ajit Prabhu,
He was freed. Maybe his network is.
correct?
Yes, yes, I'm here, Prabhu.
Sorry, we thought we lost you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Prabhu, did you hear my question?
I think something must have happened.
We can't see you, Prabhu.
No, I didn't, probably. Yeah, it was gone actually. Now can you see me, Prabhu?
Yeah, but your network is very slow. Yeah, that's fine now, Prabhu.
Now is it okay?
Yes, now okay, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
So go ahead, Prabhu. I didn't hear. I don't know if there was a question.
Yeah,
James Prabhu was saying something.
yeah, this is about Nishkam Karma. Like whatever we get, like we offer it to the Lord. And is there a difference between this and the charity given to the general public, just to like just to give away the fruitive results. So are these two considered nishkama karma, or one of them is?
Can you hear me, Prabhu?
No, you are breaking.
Or if you want to disable your video, Prabhu, audio will be okay.
Okay. Is that better? Can you hear me, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu, we can hear you.
So basically, I think if I heard the whole question, Jagnesh Prabhu's question was that what is the difference between giving in charity to the general public versus giving the results of your work to Krishna, right? Is that right, Jagnesh?
Yes, Prabhu.
So yeah, there is a big difference, Prabhu, because giving the results to Krishna will only happen if one works with the understanding that everything belongs to Krishna, so really nothing belongs to me. And if I have the ability to use certain resources in a certain way, and I use them back in Krishna's service because he's the one who's given them to me, then we are acting with the right understanding of our constitutional position, or with what's called, we are acting in Sambandha Gyan. We understand our relationship with Krishna, and we understand not just our relationship with Krishna, but Krishna's supremacy over all living entities. So Krishna's relationship with everybody. So complete understanding of Sambandha Gyan is there. And therefore, when we use everything back in Krishna's service, there is no sinful reaction. There is no reaction associated with it. In fact, that kind of charity is liberating. On the other hand, if we give charity to just anybody, we don't know how that charity will be ultimately used. And let's say if you give in charity, let's say you give some money to someone, and that person uses that money to, buy something, buy something prohibited, like intoxicants and so on and so forth. We also become implicated because we've assisted in that activity, even though you may not even be aware of it. So that's why it's very important to be very, very careful about when we give charity and who we give charity to. So Desh, Kal, and Path, those are very important. Where you give the charity, what time you give the charity, and who you give the charity to. So that's why the safest and best thing is, and that's why Krishna says in chapter 9, verse 27, Yat karosi, yat dasnasi, yat juhosi, yat dadasi, yat. Whatever you give away in charity, he says that. Tat kurushva madarpanam. Just give it to me. You're safe. That's the safest thing. So does that help?
Yes, Prabhu. Which one of them is nishkama karma? The one acting with the Sambandha Gyan?
Yes. That is real nishkam karma.
What do we call the other one, Prabhu?
That is the, yeah, good question. The other one is karma. That is part of karma kand. Yeah, that is just part of karma kand. So, but actually, because you brought it up, let me just elaborate on this just a little bit more. So, as you know, there are these different grades of action. So the first one, which is just giving in charity, that is karma kand. You think, okay, I'll do something good by giving someone charity, and God will bless me with riches in the future. Yes, that is true. But in order to receive the benefits of that charity, you have to come back into this material world. So that's why this kind of charity is binding. It brings us back into this material world, so it's not ideal. Higher than that is when you do it without attachment to the result. However, the highest is when you do it to please Krishna, and that is bhakti. So nishkam karma, or lowest is karma, part of karma kand, then nishkam karma, and then finally bhakti. So eventually the goal is to come to bhakti, and Krishna's placed these processes in place to elevate people gradually to bhakti. If somebody is a complete miser, then they say at least give something in charity somewhere. That is better than being a complete miser and giving no charity. So in that situation, karma kand charity is better than giving no charity. But for a person in knowledge, instead of karma kand charity, if he gives without attachment to the result, that is better. But even higher than that, if a person says, okay, I will use the results, I will give in charity, but I will give in such a way that it is pleasing to Krishna, then he's doing the absolute right thing. So Krishna's goal of the Vedas is to basically bring people from all different levels up to the platform of bhakti. And so this example that you, or the question that you asked, is a perfect example of how these charity is also designed in such a way that it eventually can lead one to the platform of bhakti. So I hope that helps, Prabhu.
Yeah, yes, Prabhu. Yeah. Prabhu, one follow-up question on that, like,
Yes.
what if we think the general public is connected with Krishna? They are the children of Krishna, and then we provide charity. Will that be a right understanding, or that is not the case?
No, that is perfect understanding, because that is indeed true. Everybody, regardless of whether they are devotees or non-devotees, everybody is a child of Krishna. So if you give with that understanding, that's very good. But then what you give is very important, because the person who's not a devotee, if you give them just food, they will say, why are you giving me this useless vegetarian food? So you cannot change your standard by saying, oh, he's an equal child of Krishna as a devotee. So if he's asking for food which is of his taste, even though it's not recommended in the Shastra, I'll give him. No, then that's not the right approach. If you say that I'm going to give you Krishna Prasad, offered food, whether you're a devotee or a non-devotee, then that is the right understanding. That's why prasadam distribution is done regardless of who it is given to. We distribute prasad to everybody, because that is the attitude of a Pandita Samadarshana. Views everybody equal child of Krishna. So that's a very good clarification, Jagnesh.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prabhu.
Sure, Prabhu. Welcome.
Anyone else? Okay, I think we are good too. So thank you again very much, Prabhu. Ajit, Prabhu.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you all very much for the association.
Before I let everyone go, I just have one announcement as usual. This Sunday is Pavganda Pravachan. The Pravachan by kids, and this Sunday it's going to be my daughter, Brinda. So she hasn't selected any topic yet, but she's going to give a presentation at 10 a.m. Same Zoom credentials. Please join and encourage her. And if any of your known contacts wants to give, they can also enroll with me. Thank you very much again for joining this weekly satsang. Thank you, Ajit Krishna Prabhu. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyo patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavabhyo Danta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. His Grace Krishna Prabhu ki jai. Hari Hari Bol. Thank you, Prabhu. Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Evil.